So today we're going to be looking at another popular Android front end. We're going to be looking at what I consider to be the underdog in the never-ending Android front end battle. Let's take a look at RetroHrai. Okay, so today we're going to be covering RetroHrai, and RetroHrai, I've always said, is the underdog of these Android front ends because it isn't as popular as something like Cocoon or iiSU, but it is quite polished and it does have a little dedicated community that are all about RetroHrai and making it as good as it can possibly be. So we're going to install it and we're just going to open it up, as we often do. So one thing I really like about the RetroHrai setup wizard is it's already found my ROMs folder on my internal storage. I didn't have to manually tell it. It checks default locations, and then if it can't find it, it will ask you. This also works for SD cards. I've had it where I've had a ROMs folder on an SD card and a ROMs folder internally, and it will find both. So I'm going to set up my assets folder. So I always make a custom folder for each front end. There we go. So I believe this uses the iiSU platforms, but you can import all of them. You can select all with games, or you can just select none. Don't really know what the point of that would be. So we'll do none and we'll do all with games. So it's going to add 20 platforms. So to me, this seems like iiSU on steroids. So we can also import our media. What RetroHrai does, and I believe Cocoon does this as well, is it links to the artwork and things like that. So it doesn't have to copy them over and take ages. You can see already it started to pull them through. So it's going to work through each of those folders and then grab the necessary metadata and artwork. So whilst it's doing that, here is RetroHrai, and I really like this. It's very it just works. It's a very simple Android front end. So we can use our triggers to tab across our systems, and then we can press our Y button to access our launcher. So I can also press my bumpers to jump alphabetically across different games, which is always very handy. We've also got this little search function here, which a lot of front ends don't have search functions, and it amazes me. So what we're going to do is if we press start, we're going to go through the settings. So we have our platform. So you can enable the platform browser, which I think I'm actually going to do. So the platform browser will give us the platform level, so we can quickly scroll across our systems and then we can enter them. We can still bumper across, but it's good to know that we don't have to dive straight into the games. So you have this platform view, so we can set it as slides or grid. You can also customize the amount of rows in the grid, the card shape, what the square got, nice and chunky. There's all sorts of customization features. Again, the reason I really like this front end is it has that amount of polish rather than features. We can show some metadata. So you can customize the platform view and games view independently, which is always very nice because I like having either a nice list view or a grid view for the games. So there's our list view, or you can have a grid view. So it just utilizes the screen real estate a bit more. So for platforms, this is where we can manage our platforms. You can hide these automated folders, so I don't really care for an all games folder, or I'll keep a recent one. You can have custom collections. You can edit each of these. So here is our 3DS one. We can select our emulator. So I don't want the RetroArch one, I want the external one. If there's an emulator that's not here, for example, it's not part of the iiSU pack, you can add it yourself. You can set multiple ROMs folders. I know some people tend to split bigger systems like Switch, for example, across an SD card and internal storage. So that is very handy as well. And you can set your default launch screen. You can also customize your aspect ratio. And I like that it tells you in brackets the systems that have those aspect ratios, because I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. So you can set your scrapers in here. So by default, it will already use the GamesDB and IGDB, which you can use, and for the most part, they'll probably be fine. However, I always suggest getting Screen Scraper FR and Steam Grid DB. Screen Scraper has the best repository of metadata, videos, manuals, and logos, things like that. SteamGridDB has some of the best artwork when it comes to hero images and fan art and things like that. So well recommended. You can also log into RetroAchievements through here, so I'm just going to do that now. So in audio, you can customize your background music. So by default, it doesn't have background music, which a lot of front ends seem to insist on having background music, and it's not my preferred style, unfortunately. Then you can customize sound effects. You can enable, disable individual sound effects. You can add overlays. Now, there's things like cartridges. However, I find that they don't always look the best. For example, if I do Game Boy Advance and select cartridge, you can adjust the scale. I don't know if it really lends itself to Game Boy Advance, but I just picked a random one, and then this will create a mask. So if we activate it, then go to Game Boy Advance, you'll see that they're all in this artwork scale. So if you were to scan in the actual physical media from something like Screen Scraper, this would look perfect. But I'm just messing around on the fly, so don't take any notice of what I'm telling you. I'm sure most of you watching this are way more artistically inclined than I am. Dual screen. Now, by default, it will just be single screen. However, all we need to do, with a touch of a button, and we've enabled the dual screen. You can customize the dual screen animations, which is always very nice. We have some available widgets that we can add. It has a mirror area. So when you boot into a game, it will allow you to zoom in on specific parts of the game. For example, if you've got a mini map or a UI element that you want to have kind of front and center at all times, then you can use that as well. Haven't tinkered too much with this, but good to know that it does exist. And then you can customize things like the controls and things like that. So just finally, before we wrap things up, if we hover over a console and we press our select button, you can actually customize your background logos and icons, and you can do the same, I believe, with the games. So you can customize them from here as well. Now, obviously, for the games, you can get the assets from scraping. Unfortunately, for the console themes and things like that, well, there is currently no way to apply themes internally. You have to get them off the RetroHrai Discord. It's a great resource, great little community in there. They're always working on stuff. I know that it's on the developer's roadmap to start importing these themes in directly so you can choose them from a repository. As I've said before, in my eyes, the best front ends are the ones that focus on the fundamentals first, because it's very good having a pretty looking front end, but if it doesn't work, what's the point? And then just finally, you can see that on our second screen, we also, because I've signed into RetroAchievements, I can view my RetroAchievements in here. And you can change it between list and icon. Always very, very handy. So that was RetroHrai, and again, one of my favourite front ends. I can't wait to see how this one develops. I know that the developer's dream and goal was to get it on the Google Play Store, so you can get this off the Google Play Store. However, you can also just get it from Obtainium. I do believe the versions are the same. I think the Google Play Store is usually a few days behind due to how apps have to be approved and verified and things like that. But if you want the up-to-date version, then you can just grab it from Obtainium. If you like this video, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. If you've got any questions, comments, feedback, or I've missed something you want to shout at me, then please drop a comment below. You'll want to make sure you subscribe because I've got many, many more videos about the AYN Thor, the AYN Odin, any front ends I can get my hands on, and any retro handhelds I can get my hands on as well. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.